gavel to bang. That's probably a good thing. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 2020 meeting of the Thomaston Planning and Zoning Commission. First on our, seated for tonight's meeting will be Bill Guerrero, Elizabeth Jamison, Tom Mueller, and Joe Hartz, and myself, your chairman, Ralph Salone. Also on the line is our alternate, Brian Davis. We have a bunch of public hearings to get through tonight and a bunch of discussions. Oh, before we start with the meeting, I know we had on the agenda informal discussions with Kevin Green and Josh Williams. I just got a text from Kevin Green saying that he's taking his father to the hospital. So I do not think we'll be hearing from him tonight. But first on our agenda is public hearing on special permit application number 2019-12-26-01 for section 2110 for an accessory apartment at 235 Smith Road in an RA80 residential zone. The applicant has asked us to continue that to the June 3rd meeting. So if somebody would please make a motion to continue that public hearing to the June meeting, we'll just move on.
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Joe Hart, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, we're going to do a roll call vote again, just so we have everything on the record. Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Bill Guerrero, how do you vote?
Bill Guerrero,
aye. Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hartz, aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And I, Ralph Salone, also vote aye. So the motion carries unanimously. Next on our agenda is a related public hearing for a special permit application number 2019-12-26-01 per section 21.4 for home occupation for a mobile hairstyling office at 235 Smith Road in an RA80A residential zone. And the applicant again has asked us to continue that to the June meeting. So if somebody would please make a motion to continue that.
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Joe Hart, second.
Elizabeth Jamison.
Joe beat you to it, Liz. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Bill Guerrero, how do you vote?
Bill Guerrero votes aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hartz, aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye. So again, it's a unanimous motion. Or the motion carries unanimously. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on a zoning map amendment, expansion of the downtown development district that has been tabled until we take care of some other items. Now we have a public hearing on text amendment to section 2 definitions and 15 amendments of the town of Thomaston zoning regs. And another part, let's see, we got part B, discussion and possible action thereon. So when we left it last month, we had talked about these changes, and there were some comments brought up. Specifically, I remember I brought something up about the front yard definition, and I looked at it again this afternoon to refresh myself. I think you went past it.
Are you
front yard? Remember, what I had talked to see if we could specifically identify that as the street line that the lot number is on. or the address of the lot, the street that the address is on?
I'm going back to, we kind of do address that in the lot related definitions, but I don't know if that covers everything you were concerned with. Lot line separating a lot from a street right of way. The term street line shall have the same meaning.
No, because like we ran into that other issue, you know, if the lot is 155 Main Street, but the front of the house is facing you know, Elm Street, the front yard should be the Main Street area, because that is the address of the lot.
So then on this definition for the front yard, you're wanting to add the front yard is located where? How did you phrase that?
Parallel to the street that the lot is addressed on. That way it'll match the assessor's map,
Okay.
or assessor's definition.
The lot.
And I know what I mean. I'm not sure I'm getting it across very eloquently, but hopefully you
Steve?
can interpret.
Right.
Do you have
That the we're going to 259 first, so front yard. So because fully in line with the street line of the lot, and there's spacing wall. And front yard faces or abuts, I guess we'd say abuts the street.
The street that the lot is addressed on, is that the right
Address
way to
not
say it?
identified, right. Faces the street, right, that the lot is identified as being on.
as being on according to the assessors?
Assessors, right, so we have that consistency.
Okay. Okay. So other than that clarification, is there anything else?
That was my only concern. I don't know if the other commissioners have any other concerns.
Tom
No,
Mueller,
Ralph.
I have nothing else.
Two people talked at once. I know I heard Tom Mueller in there. What did you say, Tom?
I have nothing else to add for change.
And Joe Hartz, were you the other person I heard?
No.
Bill Guerrera?
Bill Guerrero has nothing else to add.
Okay.
I just, maybe one thing to consider, 2.32 lot related definitions, do we also address then lot frontage?
Yeah, it should. It should.
Probably.
Yeah, it should be
mirror that.
better defined in there also.
Right.
Well,
On, yeah, would it be on the public street,
well,
which the lots identified?
the reason, I think the reason that we're going, because we have the corner lot stuff, so that it's not held to the same level of frontage, but it is held to a higher level of
Okay.
setback, like a rear or a side. So I don't. Because there are going to be several
Mhm.
properties that are going to be either corner, or I've even seen one that had 3.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I guess I agree with that. Because it doesn't have to be the front yard that contains the frontage. It's
Mhm.
just frontage is just how much of the perimeter borders a street, right?
Okay,
Steve, what do you think?
I know. Go back and look at 259. Yeah, I always err on the side of, consistency, that we would kind of have that same
Okay.
language flow through.
Well, I mean, if you think we should, then
Yeah,
I just want to make sure it's not going to impact
Yeah.
on what we have in terms of the corner lots.
right. I guess defining it the way we're thinking, where you would the front lot line or the frontage is the the street where it's
What's that?
how the lot's identified.
Please mute if you're having a conversation offline. Thank you.
I don't think it interferes with corner lot. I guess it might allow the corner lot person to just choose which would be the
Well, they can't because that's also defined too, I believe.
Isn't a lot situated?
Yeah. Let me look. It's in section 5.
Oh.
So Brian Davis has a question. How will this affect interior lots? And I don't think interior lots have frontage, right? Other than, I guess normally they have a driveway that's what, 20 feet, 30 feet?
Yeah, that's kind of what makes them an interior lot, is that they don't have the required
Ah.
frontage.
I see what you're saying. With corner lots, it's where the front door is, basically, is the primary entrance dictates.
Well, but this does raise a point. I mean, the 5.9, it says that the owner shall designate on the plot plan which of the two remaining yards. I was going to say, because we kind of allow them to kind of somewhat decide, whereas
Right, which is common.
we might be changing that to more decide us.
But if,
Right.
Steve, if
Yes.
the lot is a corner lot
Mhm.
and it has 50 feet of lot on Main Street and 50 feet of lot on East Main Street, doesn't the lot have 100 feet of frontage?
Not if we make them designate. I think they still would have just the one front yard.
They would have one front yard, yes, but
Right.
they would have 100 feet of frontage because they would have lot lines that parallel two streets.
Right. So I guess they would get to by this lot line, or street line.
So then the definition of the front yard wouldn't affect 2.32D, but 2.32F would have to be tightened up the same way we tightened up. You got all that, Stace?
Yeah, you'd want a similar notation on front lot line in 2.32F as
Right.
we are going to put into the front yard definition.
Right.
Okay. And just to go back to Brian's point, in section 5.4, Brian, there's a rear lots section, and it says rear lots lack the frontage required in Scheduled B.
Okay.
Was his question regarding rear lots or interior lots?
I think
Brian said interior.
Oh.
By saying interior, Brian, had you meant like a rear lot situation? Because we are.
I guess I was just questioning what defines the front yard when you have an interior lot. That's the clarification that I'm just for my. I guess that's the question that I have.
Well, I would say it goes back to the street address.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The house is turned sideways in the interior lot, facing the driveway, opposing street. May not necessarily be facing. I don't know. I don't know if I'm in the weeds now with the frontage and all the different trying to make everything work. That's all. I just didn't know. I was looking for a clarification.
Well, yeah, I mean, he
myself.
does kind of make a point in terms of if somebody's building something in, okay, well, what setback's going to apply where? But usually with the interiors, yeah, we go with whatever one's parallel to the street.
That's I was
Right.
like I said, just a question. It wasn't whether that fell under that same umbrella or not. I know interior lots are an oddball.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm looking at 2.32I lot
Okay.
interior, a
Yes.
lot which abuts only one street.
Yes.
That
Needs to change.
can't be right either, because like my lot only abuts one street.
Well, yes, but what was going on here is we were using interior and rear, and this is trying to create a distinction between the two because your regulations in 5.4 don't mention interior lot, they mention rear lots.
Correct.
So we were giving interior lot a different meaning, and rear lot is now. Does that make sense? Because
I
currently,
understand what you're thinking, but the words that are there, a lot which abuts only one street, that can't be used as a definition for an interior lot. Because by that definition, my lot is an interior lot.
many lots would be then interior lot. That's actually, a lot of these definitions, just so you know, came from Bristol and some other towns, and that is how they define that type of a lot. Rear lot
Interesting.
is what you've got described in 5.4.
In practice, is there a difference?
Well, yeah, because it's a little confusing, and all I'm saying is that whatever we call it, we
Mhm.
need to be continuous throughout the regs, consistent throughout the regs, because they are different.
Right. I see.
Well, maybe we should put a note in here that says, for purposes of these regulations, an interior lot and a rear lot shall have the same definition. Because, like I said, I got like
Well,
400 feet of frontage. How can you call me an interior lot?
if we had a diagram showing it, it would make it easier to explain it, but basically it's interior as opposed to a through lot. Imagine a property that there's a street going by the backyard too, whereas this one doesn't, an interior, there might be another property and then a street behind. Does that make sense? But if you want, what we can do is delete a lot that's only one street, keep the definition for rear lot, and then put
Right.
also known as an interior lot
Right.
or something to that effect.
That might be what we want to do.
I just want to make sure there's no confusion there.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to make that change tonight, whereas the other changes about the front yard definition I would make tonight. This change I'd rather think about for a while. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I think it's good to define a lot that only abuts one street, but I think maybe the term interior is not the proper term to use. And I really don't know what the proper term would be right now.
Yeah, so I think on that one point, I think a little more research needs to go into it. Probably I and J both need to be worked on a little bit. But other than that, and the front yard thing, that I'm okay with it as it is. So does no. Does anybody else on the commission have any questions, comments, or concerns? So this is a public hearing. Stace, you want to open it up to the public and see if the public has any questions, comments, or concerns?
Okay, everybody is now unmuted. So if you have any questions, feel free to identify yourself, your name and your address, either verbally or in the chat.
All right, so I'm not hearing any public comment, or I'm not seeing any chats come up looking for to add any public comment. So Stace, you want to mute the public again?
Sure, hang on.
And
I think they are. I think they're all muted still.
No, they were unmuted.
Tom, they can be muted two ways. Stacy can mute them, or they can mute themselves. If they mute themselves, Stacy cannot unmute them.
Okay.
So with that, I think we probably should continue this to our next meeting. So if somebody wants to make a motion to do that.
So moved.
That was Tom Mueller, right?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to second that motion?
Elizabeth Jamison, I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? In favor, we'll do a roll call vote again. Bill Guerrero?
Bill Guerrero's aye.
Tom Mueller?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz?
Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jamison?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously. So those 3 points, if you can brush them up for our next meeting, Stace. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on special permit application number 2020-3-30-01 per section 21.10 for an accessory apartment at 46 Howard Lane in an RA 80 residential zone. And the applicant / owner is Eric and Jennifer Johnson. Are they online tonight? Oh, I see them. Okay.
Hang on one moment.
Okay. Stace,
Yep,
just
they're
let me know when
unmuted.
you're caught up. All right, let me know when you're caught up, Stace.
I'm all set.
Okay. So we talked about this informally last month when the application was presented to us. And Stacy, I just want to ask you, did you verify that the proposed addition and accessory apartment meet all the items in our regulations that they need to meet?
I did, and they do.
Okay. So does any member of the commission have any questions, comments, or concerns for Eric and Jennifer? All right, I don't hear anything from anybody.
I would just want to state one other thing quickly.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
At the back of the property, let me get to it. I believe we have the map in here. At the back of the property, back here, there is a conservation easement. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that that is held by the town of Thomaston, and the Conservation Commission and me as its agent received notice regarding their proposal, and they have no issues with the application.
Good. Okay. All right. So this is a public hearing. Stacy, do you want to open it up to public comment?
Everybody's unmuted.
All right. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this application? And remember, before you comment, please identify yourself by name and address. All right. I don't hear any public comment. I didn't see any chat requests pop up. At this point, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, did the Johnsons want to say anything?
They can if they want. They're members of the public.
Just
Hi,
didn't want
Eric
to close
and Jennifer.
before that.
Eric and Jennifer Johnson here. Thank you for having us. We hope everybody's well. We're just here if you have any questions, but we appreciate the opportunity to present this proposal to you.
Thank you. All right. So now, would anybody like to make a motion to close this public hearing?
Tom Mueller, I make a motion
Elizabeth.
to,
Tom Mueller made the motion.
oh, I didn't
Is there-
finish it. Somebody else could if they want.
Oh, I thought he did finish it. My mistake.
Okay,
All right, I put Tom down already, so
all right.
I just
So
need a second.
moved.
Okay.
Tom Mueller, so moved.
All right. Is there a second on the motion?
Elizabeth Jamison, I'll second.
All right. Liz seconds it. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Bill Guerrero, how do you vote on the motion?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hart's aye.
Liz Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously to close the public hearing. We could take action on this request now and get it off the meeting agenda and let the Johnsons go about their business if anyone would like to make a motion to approve or deny.
I'll make a motion to approve special permit application number 2020-03-31-01 for an addition and an in-law apartment at 46 Howard Lane.
All right, Tom, that's great, but you accidentally misspoke the application number. Do you want to restate it, please?
Thank you.
I read it off the application. I thought 2020-03-31-01.
You made the same mistake. It's -30.
Well, then it's wrong on the application that they signed.
On the agenda, which one is it? Oh yeah, the application doesn't match what's on the agenda.
No, it matches.
No, on page 2 of the agenda, it's listed as 2020-03-30.
Right, that's what I'm
Not
reading.
on page 2. It's only
It's
on
on
page
page-
1.
Oh,
On page 2.
the paper that you're looking at has different margins than mine. So on my paper, it's on page 1. But yes, on public hearing 1A or 1B, the special permit application number is listed incorrectly.
I'm looking at it right now. It says 0330-01. What is?
The application itself says 03-31.
0331.
Yes.
Yeah. I would go by 31. It was probably incorrect on the agenda.
Is that going to be an issue, Steve?
I mean, not really. I mean, if we wanted, we could have a, motion to amend the agenda to reflect the proper application number, but we do have the correct applicant name on there. So
And
things are on file. People could have gone to see.
and there were no questions at all.
And yeah, the
Nobody
address,
contacted
45
us.
Howard Lane, right?
The 46 Howard Lane is the correct
46, I'm
address.
sorry. Yes, you have the proper address, the proper property owner and applicant. So there's enough information there that a person of a member of the general public would have been reasonably informed. So we're okay.
All right.
Just as a formality, though, I would still amend
Yes.
the agenda.
All right. So Tom made a motion to approve the special permit application. Is there a second on the motion?
Joe Hart, second.
All right. Thank you. And any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, should we amend the agenda before we vote on the application?
I would, yes, if you could.
So so that motion has been made and seconded. So let's just let it lie for a moment.
Table.
Okay.
So does somebody want to make a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved. Tom Mueller.
Thank you. Is there a second to amend the agenda?
Joe Hart's second.
Thank you. On any discussion on that motion? All right, Bill Guerrero, how do you vote on the motion to amend the agenda?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote on the motion to amend the agenda?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote on the motion to amend the agenda?
Joe Hart's aye.
And Liz, how do you vote? Liz Jamison.
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so that motion carries unanimously. Now, Bill Guerrero, how do you vote on the motion to approve special permit application 20-03-31-01?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hart's aye.
Liz Jamison, how do you vote?
Liz Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, and that motion carries unanimously. So Eric and Jennifer, you're all set.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
All right, next on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our April 1st meeting. Our history-making meeting, the first online meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
You need the minutes up, or were you able to review them ahead of time?
Well, I have my own copy on the screen. I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion to accept them or amend them.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the April 1st meeting as presented.
Thank you, Tom Mueller. Is there a second to the motion?
Elizabeth Jamison, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Bill Guerrero, how do you vote on the motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hart's aye.
Liz Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so that motion carries unanimously. Stacy, item number 2, discussion of draft regulation amendments for motor vehicle signs, solar, food, trucks, et cetera, et cetera. How do we stand on that?
In terms of if you want to discuss it, we can. If you prefer, because I mean, we do have another surprise text amendment to.
Right, but these are not really in a.
I don't think there's an urgency.
Yeah, they're not really in a state to start discussions, anyways, right? Or are they?
You could conceivably with the signs, but that's going to be probably an extensive discussion. So I don't know if you wanted to do that right now.
We'll hold that for the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, under old business, we have modification of a special permit approval number 2015-01-16-01 issued February 11th, 2015 for alcoholic beverage service at Landmark Community Theater Incorporated, Thomaston Opera House, and Crescent Gallery at 158 Main Street. This is continued from our April 1st meeting. Where do we stand on this, Stacy? I know there's been some behind the scenes work.
Yes. Attorney Byrne and I had spoken about this, and I in turn relayed the information to Jeff Dunn. Attorney Byrne feels that a modification of a special permit does require, per our regulations, does require a public hearing. So to that end, Jeff filled out a special permit application, which is on the screen right now. And I'm just admitting somebody. And he provided some supplementary information in the email that I now have up on the screen regarding the reason for the change.
I really just didn't see in your zoning regulations where there was any exception to the for having a public hearing, even though we kind of view this as a minor modification, but regulations are what they are. So
All right,
sometimes for
so
site plans, you allow, staff approval or, for a minor modification. For special permit approvals, just didn't see anything.
so that being what it is, as much as I hate to delay the process, I
Right.
guess we should. I'll take a motion to set the public hearing for our next meeting. Let me back up on that. There's a lot of stuff to come in our agenda, and Stacy and I had talked, and I think we're going to have a special meeting on what did we say, Stacy? On the 18th?
Monday, May 18th.
Monday, May 18th. So before we go any further, maybe we should number one, make sure that everyone is available on Monday the 18th, and then maybe set a special meeting for Monday the 18th, and some of these things we can bring
If you'd
up
like.
at that meeting.
If you'd like, we can schedule that. We could schedule this on the same notice.
So
Right.
Bill Guerrera, are you free on Monday the 18th for a special meeting?
Yes.
Tom Mueller, how about you?
Tom Mueller, yes.
Joe Hartz?
Yes, I am.
Liz Jamison?
Yes.
Brian Davis?
Yes, as far as I know.
All right, so I guess let me take a motion now to schedule a special meeting to take care of various items left over from this agenda for May the 18th at 7:00, and it'll be a virtual meeting again.
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thanks. Is there a second?
Joe Hart, second.
Thanks. Bill Guerrera, how do you vote?
Bill Carrera, aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so that motion carries unanimously. All right, so some of the things that get left over from here, we can push off to that. So I guess this would be a good good point in time to take a motion to schedule the public hearing for the modification of the special permit approval for 2015-01-16-01 for our May 18th special meeting.
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Elizabeth Jamison, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, Bill Guerrera, how do you vote?
Bill Carrera, aye.
Tom Mueller, how do you vote?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz, how do you vote?
Joe Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jamison, how do you vote?
Elizabeth Jamison, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously. All right, on to new business. Site plan modification number 2020-04-28-01 to add a structure to existing site plan. They want to erect an historic clock near the corner of Center Street and South Main Street at 228 South Main in a general commercial zone. Is the applicant
Mike, are you here?
online?
I am. I'm here.
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Did you want to briefly explain what you were looking to do?
Sure. So I bought this clock from the town of Layham, New York. It used to be a street clock in New York. I bought two. My intent is to put one in front of each of my offices. I'm having them restored to their original grandeur. We're going to paint them black. And because we're in Clocktown, of course, I thought it'd be really cool to have another clock in front of my property. So as you drive north on South Main Street into town, you'd see another cool clock, lit up at night with a nice calm little glow and showing people that we're Clocktown. So my intent is to put this kind of like right on the corner where Center Street and South Main come together, right there, right where your mouse is. And we're going to take down a lot of the bushes around the corner there and put up a little stone wall, kind of circular stone wall that kind of goes around the corner and stick the clock right behind it. That's the intent.
So, a couple questions. Are those Seth Thomas clocks?
They are not Seth Thomas clocks.
Oh, that's going to count against you.
Listen, finding them was hard enough. Never mind picking the brand, right?
Question number 2 is, don't I remember from your previous application that area is supposed to be paved parking lot? Or am I getting mixed up?
Yeah, I think there might be some confusion there with somebody else. The paved area is all in the back. We ended up paving behind the house and then behind the garage.
I can see that in the aerial shot. I thought that the area where the clock was going to go was supposed to be part of the parking lot too, but I will admit I was mistaken. So this does not require a public hearing, correct, Stace?
I don't believe so, no.
So does anyone on the commission have any questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Chadwick?
Oh, Mr. Chadwick, you might want to just explain the discussion you had with Glenn Clark as well.
Oh yeah, so I met Glenn over there. Stacy said I had to talk to him to get clearance. It was about a visual thing. So he and I met there and we talked about where we were going to put it. And I had to make sure he was cool with it being okay from a visual perspective. He said it was actually going to be better visually because we're cutting down a bunch of those bushes along South Main. So there will be better vision here when we're done than there is today.
So, Mike, this is Joe Hartz. The clock will face south and north along Main Street?
Yes, exactly. So you'll be able to see it coming both ways. The clock is two-faced. It's identical on both sides, and there's an LED in the middle. So it'll be lit up at night when dusk hits, and then the light will turn off in the morning. It's controlled by the amount of light outside.
Does it chime?
It does not chime, unfortunately. I had to get it restored to make it work. When I bought it, it didn't work. So we put I had a new movement made from retrofitted it to fit my clock, because my clock, the company that built my clock is actually out of business. And this company actually has come up with a design to make these clocks work. Because apparently the molds or the castings for these clocks are all relatively the same. Mine had a horrible movement. That's why the city of Latham took them all down. They had 45 of them across the town. They were every so many feet apart right along the main drag there. And they took them all down because they spent years and years fixing them.
Does it need to be wound or?
No, it's electric. You plug it. It actually is going to be wired. It'll be wired right into the system.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns?
Tom Mueller, I think it'll be a nice feature on that corner.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I have a question, just out of curiosity. Who was the original manufacturer?
That's a good question. I don't remember that name. I could dig it up for you. I have it in a bunch of emails.
I didn't know.
The Verdun Clock Company is the company I had fix it. They made the new movements and the new parts to make it work.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I think they were called the Fancy Clock Company.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously
I didn't
not
know
so
it was
fancy.
the Haven or even Timex or something like that, because they were later in Seth Thomas' life, both of those companies. So all were bought out by Timex anyhow.
Oh, I was looking for originally when I embarked upon this project, I wanted to find a Seth Thomas clock. There are just so few Seth Thomas street clocks, and the ones I did find were massive, like the one in front of the bank, and that's just too big for my property.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be fine on that. Look nice on that corner. It'll take away from some of the stuff you see just after that. The not so nice stuff. So
yeah, well, my place wasn't so nice a couple of years ago. Now it's looking pretty good.
Yeah,
looks very good.
All right. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve or deny the site plan modification?
Tom Mueller, I make a motion to approve the site plan modification.
Thank you. Is there a second on the motion?
Joe Hart, second.
Thank you, Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Bill Guerrero, how do you vote?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz,
Joe Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jamison,
Elizabeth Jameson, aye.
and Ralph Salone also votes aye. So the motion carries unanimously.
So
Thanks,
you're all
guys.
set. You're all set, Mike. We'll send you a letter in the mail.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too.
Next on our agenda, special permit application number 2020-03-31-01. Per section 21.5 for BYOB beer wine consumption at Litchfield County Axe House at 437 South Main Street in an M1 light manufacturing zone. And I see the Axe House guys are with us. And Stacy, if I recall correctly, this definitely requires a public hearing, right?
Well, again, Attorney Byrne and I spoke, and based on the language in our regulations pertaining to liquor consumption, it's just not sale, it's sale and consumption. So even though they are not the ones selling the alcohol, the fact that people would be consuming on the premises requires the special permit.
So essentially all we have to do is accept the application at this meeting and set the public hearing date, right?
Yes, and maybe perhaps since we're doing the other public hearings on the 18th, if we wanted to.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Okay.
So
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman,
who's-
Tom Mueller.
go ahead.
This application appears to have the same number as the one that we just used for
Yeah.
Howard Lane.
You are correct, and that will be corrected. This one will be 03-31-02.
Okay.
Pat had received one, I received the other. I think that's where the numbering error came from.
Pat, you have to have Sal set that up in a database so you can't get duplicate numbers.
I'm sorry.
This one was me.
I keep calling you Axe guys. I'm sorry, I can't remember your names.
Eric and Chris?
Joe and Chris.
Joe and Chris. I'm sorry.
Joe and Chris. I'll remember that for about the next 30 seconds. But essentially, Joe and Chris, what we're going to do is we'll set the public hearing for our special meeting coming up on the 18th. And you should log in with us again then. And if the public wants to comment on it, they'll have their opportunity. We have no choice but to send it through the public hearing process because that's what our regulations force us to do. So I'm not trying to slow you down. It's just the process we have to work through.
Process. I get it.
I do have one question.
Ask away.
When we attended our first meeting, there was a rush to hear a special permit and you guys voted on it that day. I'm wondering why the same due process wasn't done for us at the last virtual meeting.
Not all special permits require a public hearing. And I don't remember which one you're referring to.
I think he was wondering about the modification request for the Opera House. And the answer to that is that they already had a special permit. This was a modification of the existing in place special permit. And if our regulations had indicated, we could potentially have modified it the same night without holding a public hearing. However, yours is a new special permit, and that has to have a public hearing. Does that explain?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Yeah. Very good.
Go ahead, ask.
But we are trying to move you up to the special meeting on the 18th as opposed to their regular meeting on June 3rd. So
Okay.
we are trying to move you up a little bit if that's convenient for you.
Thank you.
One thing I just had a question about is, can we put any kind of sign on the front of the building, coming soon, something like that? You know, we don't want to follow.
A temporary?
Yeah, why don't you give me a call tomorrow and we'll talk that over.
Yeah,
Okay,
it would be just one of maybe
no
one of
bigger
these back here.
8x4, nothing bigger than that. Whatever.
We could talk about that, definitely.
You guys don't need to go through the whole commission for that. You can just work out the details with Stacy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. will somebody make a motion, please, to set the public hearing for special permit application number 2020-03-31-02 for our special meeting on Monday, the 18th?
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thanks. Is there a second?
Elizabeth Jameson, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Bill Guerrero, how do you vote on the motion?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz?
Joe Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jamison?
Elizabeth Jameson, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously. All right, so guys, we'll see you on the 18th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is an informal discussion with Robert Krawicki, and I hope I said that name correctly, regarding possible uses of property at 34 East Main Street, former church and rectory. Is Mr. Krawicki here?
He was.
He was, yeah.
Hello.
I see him.
Oh, I
here.
see him.
Okay,
Yeah, there
great.
he is. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Stacy, what's that lot zoned?
It is zoned general commercial.
And that is already part of the downtown development district, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Krawicki. Am I saying your name right?
Yeah. Yep. When the deal is sticky, call Robert Krawicki.
Wiki.
So what kind of use would you like to see there?
Well, occupied.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yep.
You know, I mean, listen. I would say we've exhausted any kind of retail use in the town. I've owned the property for about 2.5 years now, and this thing has been exposed through all kinds of sources. So I'd like to just do a rental use there, and get this place back to being active, being a lit up property that shows well, that could be lit up at Christmas time. You know,
So when you say residential, do you mean residential just in the rectory, or residential in the church itself too?
yeah, but well, there's two levels: the ground level and then the church, the former church level. Right. So the building, let's call it the entire building.
The church building. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Krawicki, the rectory already has a tenant.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yes. It has a tenant, correct.
But,
okay. I thought both buildings were unoccupied at this point.
Yeah, we struggle. We had a heck of a time since we finally got a paying customer in the church house, the rectory this year, January 1. I had a horrific situation. We've collected no rent until January of this year or February this year of that property.
All right. So right now we're only talking about the church itself then, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so it's going to be like where Alice lived, in Alice's restaurant.
You know, we'll make it a beautiful building. It'll be nice. It's a lot of space. You know, I mean, the upper building's been, completely stripped, and the floors are all been restored. And I even have an organ I've tried to give away for free. Believe it or not, I can't even get that out of the place, for free. So
now the only thing you should be aware of is that the regulations do not permit residential on the first floor in the general commercial zone.
Okay, so what we'd like to do is have a conversation on how we can accomplish that, I mean, we've got...
So if that would conceivably, and I'm talking to the commission members now, that would conceivably be okay.
And what did you have for supper?
A zone change, or I mean, I'm kind of picking your brain as to how we can accomplish this.
A couple thoughts. If Mr. Krawicki can do what he wants to do without having residential on the first floor, then that would be the
Yes.
easiest route.
Yes.
If whatever he wants to do requires residential on the first floor, I would say he first should talk to the ZBA, because I would hate to make a zone change just to accommodate this one lot. I think it would be more appropriate if the ZBA allowed it as a variance.
Now, just as a further, and interject at any time, Mr. Kowicki, if I'm explaining it wrong. It's 2 floors, one of which is the basement level, one of which you kind of go upstairs to the actual church floor.
Yeah, right. It's ground level, right? As you walk in on the street level, and then you walk up 2 sets of stairs, up, say 6 stairs maybe, and then 2 sides up inside.
So what one living area would be up in the church area, the former church area. Another potential residence would be on the ground level?
Yes.
Or is it in a basement, like down in a basement sort of situation?
It's ground level.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Stacy, this is Bill Guerrero. Do we have a street view of this property?
Street view. I can get one if you can bear with me a minute.
I got all night. I'm not going anyplace.
Well, I just have to go and get onto Google stuff.
While you're doing that, I have a question. If he puts residential on the second floor, the church area, would he then be able to put something commercial, a gift shop?
Yes, that's what the regulations want to see
would
happen.
be the ideal. Yeah. The second floor would still require a special permit, but the idea was commercial use on the first floor, residential on the second. But I don't know. Mr. Kowicki, were you looking to do residential on the first floor as well?
Street level, yes, only because of simplicity. I've exhausted. We've had numerous people in the location, right? Looked at it. It's been exposed to the market for 2.5 years. And we've been through all the obvious, right? I mean, it's a great place, art shop, and, sell, knickknacks in there. I tried to work an ice cream place and maybe even tie up the outside, for nice tent environment since we own the building next door. Try to do a bakery situation there. I had a fella that wanted to do a barbecue place. I wanted to call it Holy Smokes, right? And then he got...
Oh, that would have been fabulous.
That would have been great. I mean, they were upstairs, a venue and stuff. I'm exhausted with this property of trying to do stuff. I'm thoroughly exhausted. So I'm worn out. There is no customers. Mr. Leasing Broker,
Just to interrupt, Bill, unfortunately, Google does not have a street view on this. I thought it did.
Not even the, what do you call it? The monument there, the block there, no?
I couldn't, it didn't come up, which is surprising to me because portions of East Main Street you can get an aerial. I'm a little surprised. Let's see.
Yeah, that's okay, Stacy. I was just trying to get the street perspective of this. Not that I don't know where it is.
Yeah, it's a nice Yankee, church. I mean, Seth Thomas. It was an interesting purchase. That property was deeded to the church in 1860 when we bought it. It was even before your town was organized, I guess, right? So it was tricky title work. Bought a property hadn't changed hands in 150 years, and the rectory too. So, I mean, I try to do everything with it, honest to God. I mean, I tried to get, business use in there. It's a great old building, marketplaces, and now the market's going to be even worse. I mean, it's fighting upstream right now. But what can happen, because it's really sad to see a building like that dark, right? It's really sad. And, it'll make a beautiful place for some people to live in. So.
Well, I would suggest maybe tackling the project in two phases. Phase number one would be to do the residential stuff upstairs. That way, all you require is the special permit. And then see how that pans out. If that works out okay, and you want to make more residential units downstairs, then you can come back to us or go before the ZBA. And like I said, I would prefer that the ZBA granted you the variance on this.
Okay.
That would be the more proper way to do it. But I think maybe, so you don't tie up a lot of money, maybe you can do it in two phases. Do the upstairs, which is the least amount of administrative red tape. And then, and like I said, see how it works out. I would hope you find a lot of tenants, but you never know. You may end up with nobody wanting to rent there either.
Well, with the rectory building, I think we got a pretty good pulse of it. We got, we do other things in the apartment rental kind of process. So, upstairs, I even was going to say, I make it, my residence for myself, but what's involved in getting the variance here for this property?
Well, I can't speak for the ZBA, but in general, you have to file an application with them. They review it. They set a public hearing. They talk to you about it. Same as we're doing here. You have to be able to justify your need for a variance also.
Yeah,
right,
and also
Steve?
A hardship.
A hardship.
An unusual hardship you need to show, but like I said, we saw the building more. I mean, it's kind of a unique structure, so it's a church and all, so maybe that would help get the variance. But it's a tough hurdle to get over, but it's not impossible.
But it's not
And how do you get a special exception?
The special permit? I'm
Special
sorry, what was
exception for the upstairs?
Yes, to have mixed use residential does require a special permit. The
But
goal
that's
of that
just
is,
that's just this commission,
yeah,
Bob. You don't have to go through
you
anybody
don't
else.
have the hurdle of a hardship or anything else to prove.
I see. Okay. All right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it's Tom Mueller.
Yes.
As part of that application, would he have to indicate where a certain number of parking places are for the tenants?
I think that's part of the regulations for the mixed use. I think you have to have.
There is.
Stacey, is it one or is it two parking places for every residential unit?
Let me see.
But parking is a requirement of that.
It is. I
Tom.
know it's a requirement.
That seems like a fairly big hurdle to overcome on that location.
Yeah, that could be a big hurdle, but depends if, now we don't have any parking.
Well, we do allow them to count on street parking. I see that property has frontage on two streets.
Correct.
One, well, no, unfortunately, it says one off-street parking space shall be provided for all units up to 600 square feet. Two off-street parking spaces shall be provided for all units over 600 square feet.
So what kind of were you thinking of doing, Mr. Kroenke?
Wait a minute, you're asking me what was I thinking of?
Are we thinking of 1,000 square foot units, 500 square foot units?
Yeah, two or three tops. Upstairs would be likely just one big gigantic 2 units upstairs. Yeah, maybe depending on the way it breaks out, but maybe 2 down and 2 up. But it could be 2 down and one up.
So, and what was the parking part of the regulation, Stacy? Say that again.
One off-street parking space shall be provided for all units up to 600 square feet. 2 off-street parking spaces shall be provided for all units over 600 square feet.
So it looks like you'd have to find off-street parking probably for 8 cars at the most.
Okay, now how about to the issue of a curb cut in there? So coming in on Park, it's Park Street or Park Road? Park Street?
Park Street.
Right? I mean, there would be into the back of the property.
There's not a curb cut there already?
No. And then there'd be probably the ability to put 4. It'd be a damn shame to do parking on the property, but if you do it, you're bastardizing the property. On the side of the church on Main Street, no, not Main Street, East Main Street.
Well, I would think you would want to put the parking in between the.
Hello. Please mute yourself, whoever's using the heavy equipment.
I would think you want to put the parking between the rectory and the church, right?
In the rectory and the church.
And then there'd be parking on the
I gotta plug you into some. I gotta plug my computer in. Well, okay. I'm trying to keep. The goal would be to try to keep the thing looking decent.
Yeah, I know.
Right. I mean, that would listen. That church is a cool looking structure. And the goal there is to keep that structure looking. I'll make that structure even nicer. But I mean, that's a classic. I walked into your American Legion place a couple of months back, and they had an old drawing of that building, painting of it and stuff. The place looks spectacular. I mean, it'll look way better than it's looked the last 20 years. I get done with it. But parking, how do I get I got to get an exemption to parking when people just park on the street or park, in the parking lot across the street. Make a deal over there. I'd hate to put parking on that property.
Again, that would be a ZBA issue.
Stacy and Ralph.
Go ahead, Bill.
Stacy and Ralph, this is Bill Guerrero. So we have our downtown development regulations, all right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking to see within the context of those regulations, which does give us a bit of latitude, what we can do within that framework.
Oh, and Bill, along those lines, remember a few years back we approved that floating zone?
Yes, that's correct, Ralph.
Would that help here?
That's where I'm going with this, Ralph. Yes, exactly. I mean, a floating zone isn't, you could draw an analogy that it's a one-up zone change, but the floating zone within the context of the downtown development district,
Thank you, Brian.
Might be helpful. I'm just saying it's worth an avenue to explore.
Okay.
So, Mr. Crikey, I think the bottom line is that I'm not hearing anyone on the commission that is, opposed to what you want to do. Mm-hmm. There's some hurdles that need to be worked through, mm-hmm. And I'm sure that they probably could be worked through, but I think we'd have to have more definitive plans before we can really go any further.
Okay.
Hey, Ralph, this is Bill.
Yes, Bill.
So with respect to definitive plans, it's almost like the chicken or the egg. It's kind of hard to come up with a definitive plan unless you really know the context of the regulations you're working under.
Right, and I think it might be better for him to go see Stacy offline. And
I agree. It's just worth it to explore. And I agree, Ralph. We should do this offline. We got a number of things tonight, but I think the intent of the commission is one to help and work with the applicant, but it's just some challenges involved with respect to a historical building of that nature. How do you keep the integrity of that building within the within the community, at the same time making it a viable economic concern?
Right, and there are some projects that are a definite no way, no how, but this is not one of them.
Yes, might be a good retirement project for me too. Okay.
Could I just make a statement?
Sure.
I from a economic standpoint, I would.
Could you please, I'm sorry, could you please identify yourself? Is this Mr. Kowicki?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. I'm sorry, I've thought about that, but
He dropped
Brian
out.
Davis.
Brian Davis. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brian.
We were getting a building in the center of town. I mean, right across the street from the green, and we're talking about converting the entire historic church building into apartments. That just doesn't sit well with me. It seems like we should be able to find something else possible. I mean, and then we're losing commercial real estate to residential at that point as well. So on the upper floors, maybe there's something could be figured out, but the ground floor or the basement level, it's kind of half and half is really, I think we should try to avoid that if at all possible.
Mr. Davis, are you a neighbor to the property by chance?
No. I'm a historic buff in Thomaston. That was my grandparents' church, actually.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt was buried. My cousins went to church their entire life, so I know the property well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a town resident and an alternate on the board. That's all.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, listen, I bought the building. I love the building. I love the location, and I've been involved in all kinds of properties in my career, and I'm all for the integrity of that building. That's why I bought it. And I know I can tell you this. I mean, I've thought about it just being my house. Right? I have property in Bristol, Connecticut. And I bought a property. You might want to come, come and take a look at it next to the library in Bristol. I bought one from the state of Connecticut. It's a group home. It was a real dog with fleas. When I bought it, it's beautifully restored. I got, beautiful flowers and gardens around it. I mean, my background is to beautify stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, that church is ugly looking right now. It's not lit up. Front glass windows need to be lit up. I mean, that thing will look, when I get done, if I'm allowed to get something done here, what I'm thinking, that place will it'll be a showpiece for that town. It'll be a showpiece for your town. They got done with it. And that's pretty much my way of seeing things. But look, I would have loved to have put, an art place in there. There you go. Right?
Beautiful.
Right? I mean, the downstairs, the red, all those windows, they all got to be restored, right? Taken out, replaced. I mean, if you can go back to the front of the building, all that plastic in front of those 3 windows over there is junk, right? That building should be lit up, and there'll be colored lights, reflecting the stained glass in them. It look beautiful. I mean, that building right now looks like a pig, and it's in the center of town. I hate to say it that way. And again, we try. I mean, I've tried. I'm exhausted. I'm a real estate broker. We have tried every angle possible to rent that place out to somebody commercial. And then now it's, now with this economy, I think what we got and what we're going to be faced with, small business people are going to be even far harder to find, if not impossible to find. But if you can picture, I mean, this picture of these places, nice flowers, rose bushes. I mean, on the one side, you got the sun. On the other side, you can't see. This thing should be fully landscaped, looking stunning. Now, the space over here we're showing right now, I mean, there's there, if I was a real slob of an owner, you'd say, let me go fight to go put parking in. That would destroy the view. That would destroy the appearance of that church. So, I mean, trying to, have the ability to park on the street. I mean, the people that rent in the, the rectory, I mean, they park on the street.
So there's that, the building next to it on East Main Street.
Yes.
I think was there a vet is there and a realtor? Yeah. Maybe you could work out a deal with them to have some of your parking in their parking lot, some kind of rental agreement or something. You know, it doesn't, you have to provide, the rules say, the regs say you have to provide off-street parking, but they don't say that they have to be on your property. They can, if you have an agreement with a neighbor, that'll work too.
Yeah, I know Sue McDonald really well too. So, I mean, I could talk to her she has across the street. Or at least I think she still does.
Yeah, Sue McDonald owns a lot on Park Street.
Right, okay, yeah. I
And
know
that's a huge lot, yeah.
Yeah, she's a client. My brother's an attorney in Bristol, so she's been a long-term client.
So I think your next step is to have an offline conversation with Stacy, and have her point you to the sections of the regs that apply, and go through them and see what's allowed and not allowed, and what might be the path of least resistance.
Yeah. I'm all in fit. Listen, I'm not. There's nothing here about being greedy about any of this stuff. I've got to pay the bills in this place, pay your taxes, and this is a monument to the town. This is a beautiful building for the preservation of the town. So I'm not looking to I got to go skin this cat, and come out of here like some, I'm all, I knew what I bought when I got it. That should be a beautiful restored building in your town. It should be, look at the Christmas lights aren't on it now. We pulled the electricity off, the whole bit,
I think we all agree that an empty building doesn't do you or the town any good.
Yeah.
So,
all right, good. Okay, super. All right, Stacy, I'll be in touch with you.
Sure.
Okay. We're all set now?
yeah, I guess that's it. Like I said, it's just an informal discussion.
Yeah, Stacy, when are you can you take visitors at the Thomaston Town Hall or no?
Unfortunately, not right now.
So yeah.
If you want to talk by phone, email is I guess phone is probably going to be the best way to do it.
When are they lifting, when is the, when do they think you might be able to be open for public business?
That's a tough one. I'm not
Be
sure.
a while.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. I'll just reach for you.
Okay.
Good. All right, folks. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye now.
Bye.
How do I turn this off?
Next on our agenda is an informal discussion with Kevin Green regarding 555 Waterbury Road. I see he's back on. I didn't expect him. I hope everything worked out okay for him. Stacy, you want to start the ball rolling?
Sure. Hang on a moment. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just checking the chat for a moment. Okay. The reason I asked Mr. Green to attend was regarding some information on his approved site plan, and I just wanted to kind of go over with you guys. And it seems like to me that it might be a little bit beyond what was originally approved, and I just wanted to discuss it with you, go over the plan with you, and if so, help Mr. Green figure out what he needs to do so we can get right. Now bear with me as I get to what I'm specifically referring to, and I don't know if you can read it. These are in order to make it readable, we made copies of the approved site plan and kind of blew up sections of it so that you could see it. Is right here in the site development notes. This plan specifies that the disturbed area be exposed to bedrock or be sloped to grade not to exceed 2 to 1. Depending on the field conditions encountered, blasting of bedrock may be required and or a retaining wall may need to be constructed. This plan does not address engineering requirements of either. An engineer should be contracted during site development to oversee the site development. Here is the plan that was approved, and I apologize if it's not readable. Over here is Waterbury Road, and over here is West Hill. There's an entranceway over here that was supposed to be abandoned. Blasting has been done. There has been a crusher on site. There's no location indicated on the plans for a crusher. And as you know, the requirements are for 200 feet back from a street. So I guess I'm looking for some direction from the commission how to handle this.
So,
and like I said, Mr. Green was nice enough to, when we called him, he was nice enough to come in to the phone conversation.
So, Mr. Green.
Yes.
Are you all done with the blasting, or is there more blasting that will need to be done?
Well, I thought it was done. Give me a second. Take these headphones off here. I'm getting an echo. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I was done before, but I've just had too much to deal with as far as water that comes off my hill. And I stopped a little short with the way the topography was, the way the blasters were able to blast. So I stopped short of making my yard the shape it was supposed to be. Are you still there?
Yep, we're listening.
I can't tell if it's better to have these headphones on or not.
So
we hear you fine.
We are hearing you fine.
Okay. I just can't hear you now since I took those headphones off. But so what I've got going on is, let me try this. The way we had to blast some more so I could get to the right size of what I had for a yard on the plans. But unfortunately, it's not something I want to keep doing because there's no money to be made in it, and it cost me a lot of money out of pocket. I blasted on the, in 2015 and 2016, thought I was all done. But right now, with where it's blasted to, now I can get everything from my site in there. So is that what you were asking, Ralph?
Yeah. Well, are you all done with the blasting, or is there more that will need to be done in the future?
Is that?
No, I mean, I'd love to take the whole hill out, but I'm not going to live to be 100 years old because it takes too long to move material out of there. Unfortunately, every time I go and blast something, it seems like we either have a recession or a pandemic. So I'm not the best as far as planning on when to do this, because when this stuff happens, nothing moves. So I'm choked up with it and sit there with it.
So you don't foresee yourself doing any additional blasting?
No, because what I've got on my site plan will fit into everything that's been removed there now.
So with the blasting comes crushing. How much of that is left to go?
Can whoever please mute yourself if you're not speaking? Please mute yourself if you're not speaking.
Okay. With the crushing, there was a couple little high spots that they had to come back and take care of. So I've got to bring it back in one more time.
Is the crusher there now or no?
No. They charge too much a day to keep it there. So.
I don't know. He's working towards his plan, and he's almost there. I would like to know what everybody else thinks.
Well, again, I'm looking for clarification in terms of if a crusher is coming in, we don't have a place indicated on here, and there's the concern about the 200-foot setback.
So did the original approval provide for processing on site?
Not that I can see, because again, there was that note on there that kind of seemed to indicate that before any of that happened, an engineer was supposed to be contacted.
Okay, so it's left for another date maybe.
Ralph, it's Joe. What kind of feedback are you looking for from us?
I just want to know what your thoughts are on the matter. I mean, he's almost done. I think he's only got a little bit more to go. At least that's what it seems to me. And I'm inclined just to let him finish, because what he's done is going to look a lot better than it does now.
Ralph. Oh my God. Brian Davis. Can I? Has he been in for? He came in recently to re-up his special permit. Mike.
That's correct. Yep.
It was a site plan approval, actually.
To renew it, basically, right?
Yes, the site plan is good for 5 years, and he did come back to renew it not too long ago.
Are there any bonds or anything on that? I don't.
There is not. Are you there, Kevin? Mr. Green? Are you there? He may have logged. I think he was having some difficulties. He may have logged out and logged back. Hopefully
I see him on the screen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
If you can hear me, you can use the chat to talk with us, or you may want to log out and try logging back in.
All right, looks like he just logged out.
Lost him.
Well, I think he logged out and it's going to log back in. We'll wait a minute. But again, I'd like to know what everybody else thinks. But before we go down that road, let's wait till he gets back on.
Right.
Oh, here he is. Okay. Yep, he's back in, hopefully. Although I'm not seeing anything to indicate a microphone.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you pretty good. You're on your phone now?
No. I have been on my phone. The Zoom just said I was muted before. Now it just said I was unmuted, so I don't know what's going on.
All right. So now that he's back on, again, I'd like to know what the rest of the commission thinks, what your opinions are.
Well, can I answer one thing? I could hear your conversation.
Sure.
When we did this site plan, I had extensive conversations with Jeremy. I went through Jeremy to find out what I had to do to start all this and go through the whole process. And one of the concerns I had was, because nothing in Thomason's flat and it's all rock. I read all the regulations and they really haven't changed.
Please mute if you're not speaking.
One thing I was concerned about was, because I had to move over 1,000 yards off the property and it was going to be rock, what do we have to do? And Jeremy's consensus was, well, the property is going to be used for material yards, for a landscaping yard, and we're going to be taking material out of there. I'm bringing it in, taking it out once it's all established. So he goes, technically, I'm doing the same thing I had come to the commission for. So, I don't know, what else we're going to do. Let me ask you this. What would have been the process since I didn't have an issue with the P&Z before with the other 2 times I blasted and crushed? I know now Stacy's running P&Z or the zoning enforcement now, and it's, perspectives may have changed, but what would have been the process, or what is the process at this point going forward is what I want to know as well.
Well, at the time Mr. Green came in, there would have been the old earth excavation and mining regulations. We have the new ones that you had adopted earlier this year in place now. And there is the exception if a building's going to be built.
That's right.
Obviously, that was unlimited back then. It is limited now. But even with that exception, there was also still supposed to be that 200 foot setback, et cetera. So that's, I mean,
Well,
I'm sensible of the fact that Mr. Green applied and came in and did what was required and extended his application and everything. However, there's a few things
like
here
to
that
put out
don't seem like
there,
they
too.
were addressed, and I'm looking for clarification from the commission.
Right. I'd like to put out there that, you know, I live on this property. Granted, it's not shown on this site plan, but I have the 11 acres around it. I'm very good, you know, I try to converse with everybody that's my neighbors and everything. I don't want to disturb anybody. Everybody gives me compliments more than anything. I haven't heard a word negative at all. What I would like to do, is just find out, had the new regulations been in place for this, what would I have had to do?
You would have.
The new regs don't apply to this because this was all approved under the old regs. Isn't that correct, Steve?
Yeah, it is. It's not conforming as to, you know, right now you'd have to come in for a special exception application, but under the old regs, yeah, he did not have to. It was just a site plan approval. So he's
right. That's, you know, that's what Jeremy has led me to believe. And, you know, I went through the 5 years in my permit before. Of course, the recession slowed everything down. I came back in, renewed it, and, you know, the only thing the commission had me do on my site plan that changed anything, and when we had all these discussions, was take a security light off of a pole because I didn't have a lighting plan. I live in town. I volunteer in town. I love this town, and I just want to make sure everything's right for it. I don't want to step any toes, but I'd also, you know, as a contractor, I think there's an issue with the way some of the regs are written. I was talking to Ralph before, just in conversation, and I'm kind of surprised reading through the regs that the commission doesn't issue a permit for like a screener or a crusher to come in, like the fire department does for like burning permits.
Hello?
You know, it would give the commission the ability to say, you can start now, you can run it for a month for say $500, you know, to cover the administration costs, and everybody would have a start and stop date, and it would allow a little flexibility with some of the regulations.
So that's not a bad idea. Unfortunately, it's not active at the moment.
Oh, I understand that. I just wanted to bring it up since this is a great conversation to bring it up on.
Now, is there anywhere on there that a processor could go, or is the lot just too small to meet that 200-foot setback?
I don't believe. Go ahead.
We, I have the fire department over to my property so we can do a rappelling class every 3 years for recertification. So there's not too much flat spot on there. I mean, I couldn't even raise goats on my property.
And I don't believe there's any 200-foot distance that he could on there now that he could put a piece of machinery.
Mm-hmm. I know, talking to my neighbors, you know, when I've been down in there working with the way I have, you know, being I'm in a hole and I've put my stockpiles, they don't even know I'm working there most of the time because of the sound dampening. And then across the street is just the river, the railroad, and the sewer plant, you know, so.
I mean, he has a point because I live just up the road from there, and I must drive by his place about 4,000 times a day. And because of the stockpile, you almost cannot see the machinery there. He's got excavators and bucket loaders that are not small, and they're fairly well hidden.
You know, I'm not trying to make excuses like it's, you know, should be allowed for me or anybody else, but it's just, you know, I just want to see what we need to do.
I guess, Steve, would you say that that's something that needs a variance then?
I know I hate to send so much business their way, but probably would be a variance request. And again, the hardship here is if, you know, if the topography of that lot is somewhat unusual, that prevents, you know, complying with that 200 foot setback, you know, then the ZBA could entertain an application and maybe put in some additional safeguards that would mitigate
They
risk.
have done it for other properties along that road doing.
Oh, you actually have, right.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. So it's probably the way to go here. And, but if you find you're sending too much business to ZBA's way because of the setback, you know, the commission may want to reconsider, do we really want a 200 foot setback or do we somehow modify that? Because we've had to do this before.
Like has been suggested, maybe, you know, we come up with temporary type permits or address a temporary operation in our regs that maybe doesn't require a 200 foot setback. I don't know. That's something to consider down the line.
I think you're right, because it's the permanent operations that can be a real hardship on a neighborhood, but processors like this where it's a temporary, you know, use, you know, you could treat that differently, I think.
And this is really only temporary until he does clear that property to get to this final site plan.
Right.
I mean, to tell you the truth, you know, I've been in the business for about 30 years, and it's remarkable how much quieter everything has become. Yeah, I mean, it's still just as loud as standing next to the highway if you're standing next to it. But the noise dampening just for comfort when you're running it has gotten so much better over 30 years. So, I mean, I really think that these regs are really overdone, especially because a lot of the regs on them say 200 feet from a property line. Well, if you don't have a house and you have 600 acres of woods next to you, why would it be just to a property line? You know, I mean, I'm surprised it doesn't say, 250 feet from a residential, occupancy or a business.
And again, that's good feedback. That might be a consideration down the road. Unfortunately, that's not the way it's written now.
Right. So this conversation so far, it leaves me wondering whether I'm going to get a cease and desist until, do I have to get a variance to do anything else to keep going?
I think your next step is to give Stacy a call tomorrow about getting in front of the ZBA.
Right.
I think if we're doing that and we're moving along in that way, I mean, you're trying to rectify the situation.
And you're not creating any harm to any other property values or your neighbor's health or anything like that. So you brought up a cease and desist. I don't think that's necessary in this case.
I think you guys have stayed enforcement while you're getting cooperation from the property owner, like there's a pending application that would address the issue.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, I mean, and furthermore, he has the permit already in place. It's just we're now trying to clarify this extended portion of what was previously approved. So, I mean, I don't see it as something like the same as something that was completely not permitted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now, can I keep doing what I'm doing, but still go through the process and get official approval? Or is this informal meeting going to become I can't do anything else until the whole process is finished?
Are you crushing right now?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I need to.
Do you know when you will be crushing again? And do you know how long you'll be doing it for?
I think there's a couple days. There's not much left. But it's a matter of scheduling and, the crusher's down the road. So if I can get them to come in, it saves me $600-700 to move the machine. I mean, it's, I've got to watch because it costs too much to blast. It costs too much to crush unless all the ducts aligned. I physically or financially can't make it viable. So I've just got to wait until that opportunity works out for myself to do it. And right now, it's, you know, the sooner the better for me, because I can save on the moving of the equipment.
Well, just so it helps frame the discussion, they typically meet on the third, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, if
Third
she's still here.
Tuesday.
Third Tuesday. They were canceled for this month, so the next meeting would be the third Tuesday in June.
Yeah, that crusher won't be around anymore then.
How much crushing time do you think you have? A couple of days?
Yeah, that's it.
What if we had him get a hold of Stacy the day before he was going to do any crushing and have him and Stacy work together to situate the machinery as far away from the neighboring property lines as possible, given the lot size?
Well, there's only one spot, and it would be in the absolute corner. That's the only spot it can be set up at this point. So
the corner
which
here
corner?
in front?
North, south, east, west? Yeah.
Am I pointing? I have the arrow. Is that the area you're talking?
No, that's over towards West Hill and Waterbury Road, would be the opposite corner.
Okay, because I saw it was there at one point, so I wasn't sure. Are you talking over here?
No, there was never anything up there. That's West Hill and Waterbury Road corner.
Yeah, I know, but I did see it there a couple times.
So where exactly, Kevin?
If you see where the cursor is on that screen, it'd be
yes.
the bottom right. It'd be the bottom right right there. The cursor's down in that corner, correct? Yep. Stacy, the only time you ever saw the crusher up there would be if it was parked, just being brought in. Yeah. But it's never been run up there.
Okay.
What's your opinion, Steve?
I think the most appropriate way would be for, an application to be filed for a variance. And so we have an agreement that, an agreement from Mr. Green, he would follow through with that application, and then we could stay enforcement while that application is pending. So say he was going to use the processor, and within 2 weeks, before the variance is heard, he could work with Stacy at least to find a suitable location. But like I said, you have before, when you have cooperation from a property owner, you have state enforcement while there's an application pending. So we did it up the street for another applicant when they had that special permit application. We state enforcement while that was pending. So I think we do the same thing here. So yeah, I think we should file the application for the variance and see that through.
Why don't we do that then, Mr. Green? File an application with the ZBA. Right. And in the meantime, while that application is pending, there won't be any enforcement action. And if you happen to get the crushing done sooner rather than later, I think that's probably to everyone's benefit.
This will be covered going forward too, if he is, in the future.
Yeah, this is Bill Carrera, Ralph. So he'll get a cease and desist or a nasty gram from Stacy. By that time, he'll be done. Is that what we're saying?
It might work out that way. I don't know.
Right. If it happens.
Yeah, it happens. I get you. Okay.
And plus the reality of our situation right now anyway, the courts are all closed down, so even if we wanted to, you can't do much with enforcement for the time being.
Well, I'm not looking to go that route with you guys.
Right.
Yeah, we would obviously prefer that as well.
I live on top of this rock bottom, and my neighbors have to live with them all the time. So, I want to do what's right, but still to be held up at this point after having my permit originally obtained and then renewed last February by you guys, and then to be put the brakes on all of a sudden really would not be fair to myself.
Well, I don't think anybody's talking about putting the brakes on. I think what we're saying is that if you start the process of going through the ZBA to get whatever variance you may need, that we will withhold enforcement action.
Right. as long as we're gaining cooperation.
Right. Let me ask you this question. What kind of fees are involved with this appeal? Any idea?
I
A variance.
do you know, Stacy?
Yes, a variance is the same cost as a special permit, and that is $495.
I'm almost tempted to put it in there at $100 a day without one. And I'll say that right up front.
This is Bill Carrera. That's where unofficially I was going with this, Ralph.
I see your point. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Yeah, we really can't say much more about this, Kevin.
Right. Okay. Well, I won't press the issue. I understand. Okay. Well,
Stacy,
would that
Stacy, Tom Mueller, would that fee be returned if he withdraws the application in 2 or 3 weeks?
It depends where we're at, if we've done legal noticing and everything that's paying for, because again, that I know it is, it's an expense, and I definitely acknowledge that, but that's to cover the legal noticing we are required to do, which is definitely not inexpensive. So it all kind of depends on the timing of all that. If the legal noticing has run, then by that point we would probably have to keep it.
Okay, let me ask you another question then. With Zoning Board of Appeals, what would I be asking them for? To be able to use
called a variance.
For the rest of the project? Okay, a variance for the rest of the job?
What it is that you'd be requesting is a variance of the section of the zoning regulations that requires the processing equipment to be 200 feet back from the road. And you would be identifying to them, here's where on the plan I'm planning to locate it, and that might only be 50 feet, that might be 60 feet, whatever, but you're looking for permission to put it there instead of the required 200 feet.
Okay. Well, I mean,
is this, so I'm on, next time that you're going to be doing crushing is the very last time that you're going to have to be doing any crushing? There's not any future time where you're going to need to do it?
Not unless I have to reduce that pile down to a smaller size. If I had a customer that wanted to, get something, a smaller product out of it.
So it is conceivable even after this time you might still need to have crushing occur.
Well, that's the only reason I bring up the appeals thing and the variance is, I have no plans on keep on going into the hill. I would love to make it bigger, but I would imagine the variance would only be granted to me for the time that the project is in progress.
No, in general, the variance is permanent.
It runs with land. Okay. Once you have it forever.
Okay. Well, I think I'll go through with the appeal, and I'll
with the variance with the appeal. I'm not sure what they are different, so that's why I'm asking.
No, I think you mean Zoning Board of Appeals, right, Mr. Green?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sometimes I can't read my own writing.
Okay. So if you'd like to apply for the variance, then why don't you give me a call tomorrow? And actually, I do have your email address. I can send you the link to the variance application, and we can talk about how you would go forward with that.
Okay. I probably won't get a hold of you tomorrow.
Okay.
I've got a lot of family stuff going on after this evening, so.
Understood.
Yeah, I'm just lucky I made the meeting.
No, and we appreciate that. All the more since you had something going on.
Right. So, okay. That works with me. Is there anything else?
I don't have anything else. Does anyone else have anything? It sounds like that's the long and the short of it, Mr. Green.
Okay. Well, I'd rather put it to bed and get it taken care of.
And I think that would do it.
Okay. Let me ask just a hypothetical question while I have the board on the phone here. If I wanted to go make this property bigger, to make my yard bigger, I'd have to go through the whole process of a new site plan, or would it be a modification?
I guess it kind of depends on how much we're talking, you know. I mean, if it's a little change, it could be a modification. If it's a substantial change to what was approved, it may have to come back to something new.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's all in the proportion of what you think.
It's a matter of degree.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, if you can send me that link, what I'll do is I'll get in touch with you probably Friday.
Okay.
Okay. Are you there all day? Or are you around all day with the reduced hours?
No, the town hall is open. It's normal business hours. So tomorrow I'm there till 6. Friday is only till noon, but then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week is till 4.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Have a good night.
All right, next we have informal discussion with Josh Williams of MJW Services about 1617 Waterbury Road. Is Mr. Williams on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Stace, you want to bring us all up to speed?
Okay. Mr. Williams also has been through and obtained an approval, came back for a modification to his hours of operation, and all of this was done according to your requirements. There is on his plan indicated a 200 feet from the road location for processing equipment. However, and Mr. Williams can probably explain a little bit better than I can his need for doing so, but it has moved closer to the road at various times. So I think what we're saying is probably going to sound somewhat similar to where the discussion was for the previous location, but maybe Mr. Williams wants to explain what his need is to move the processing equipment around.
So I'm staying within the area, but I am closer to the road because of the topsoil. I can't cross-contaminate my topsoil with the recycled material. It's a big problem for me. It'll ruin my material. So that's the partial reasoning of what I'm doing. I'm not trying to do it to disobey anybody, but I am. So I agreed upon being in that far area because I want to be so far away from my furthest neighbor towards Waterbury.
Merritt.
The Merritt, to keep my peace with them, and I don't really have any issues with anyone else, otherwise with as far as disrupting anybody, and I'm not trying to. I haven't even really run at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm really running at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we try to stop by 5 because I'm trying to, even though my hours are 6 to 6, but I'm trying to stay respectable to everyone, But the main reasoning that I'm having right now is I'm having a hard enough time as it is with the topsoil season, being with all the rain to get it green. And then the other part of it is the recycled material. I can't have that material get cross-contaminated because then it's going to be worth nothing. So
are you harvesting the topsoil from that site?
No, it's partial that, and a lot of it we do haul in a lot of topsoil to the site.
So I'm just wondering if you can, the topsoil that you are harvesting from that site, can you harvest in one particular area so that the topsoil is gone and then move the equipment to that area? Would that avoid the cross-contamination?
The problem right now is if you obviously, everybody drives by, you can see where the topsoil pile is. you know, I'm within like 50, 60 feet of my area that I'm supposed to be in anyways. But the problem is I can't put that material where the other material is, where the crushing and screening is. It's just not possible. You can't do that, you know? So how do I take a material that's rich, that's made for growing somebody's grass with asphalt and concrete, you know? That's kind of where I'm at with that, you know? So I'm working towards getting the machine, the screener, to the back of the pile here and work off the back of the pile somehow. But I'm working that way. I mean, I moved the screener out of there to, you know, try to get that way more prominently towards the back of the property.
So yes, I've got your plan up, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
And right here is where the crushing and screening equipment is indicated to be used. If that 200 foot requirement wasn't in place, where would you be looking to have it ideally?
I believe it's hard to see on the
I know,
print.
I apologize.
If you move to your right, keep going to your right and then come forward more. Oh, it's Waterbury. Okay, so it really
left corner of the boxes.
Yeah, kind of off that, somewhere's in that vicinity.
No, the other side.
This is
here or here? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
right there.
Exactly.
Right there. You're
okay.
That's the road and then back. But right now, you know, every time we move material, it costs money. So it's like, you know, the economy we're in right now. So we're trying our best to move it back. But
I have excess of whatever. I think there's 6,000 or 7,000 yards of topsoil, you know, in that vicinity. So that's why I'm trying to stay in that area and stay back as far as I can. Yes, I was out closer. I'm not dismissing what I did, and I guess I need to show my reasoning for it, and I do apologize for it. But my biggest problem is the cross contamination, and you know, I have to do everything I can, obviously, to make every penny I can, because this is hurting me.
I can certainly appreciate that.
So where is the machine now? Is it out past? Is it in compliance with the 200-foot limit, or is it not?
The machine is moved back. I moved it back tonight. It is in compliance as of right now. But you know, how do I make this work? You know, for my topsoil operation, that's kind of the predicament I'm in right now.
So if you were to get a variance that permitted you to bring, hang on one moment, I have to admit somebody.
I got it.
If you were given a variance that would allow you to bring the equipment maybe up to here, would that satisfy what you needed?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay.
I hate to say it, but it looks like the smartest thing to do is to go see our friends at the ZBA.
And then I think maybe a discussion for another time is visiting the merits of the 200.
Yes, I agree.
we've been in contact with the Merritts and they've had nothing but issues. And I think
I'm saying no. I wasn't. I wasn't talking about your neighbors, the Merritts. I was talking
She
about
meant the merits of the 200-foot limit.
whether or not, if that's wants to reevaluate. I forgot your neighbors were the Merritts.
I would never, it's only the screening of the topsoil that I would have an issue with. The crushing will always be where it is. I'll always be within that limits. You know, that's where all our recycled material comes in that box, and that's where I plan to keep it, you know, at that spot. You know, I have no intent of being, you know, off the side of the road crushing, because you know, there's no need for it, you know.
Well, so it's only the screener that's not.
Yeah, it's not. It is only the screener that I have had out there. There will be no crushing by the side of the road.
And are you working towards, as you're using up the material, are you working towards moving the screener back past 200 feet?
Absolutely.
And once you get it past there, will it stay there permanently?
Well, as long as that's the goal, yes. But, you know, as, you know, we work towards it, I need to keep, like I said, I need to have, you know, that barrier of keeping the material separate.
Is it conceivable beyond, like, say, the next few months? Is it conceivable in the future you might need to move the screener up closer? What I'm trying to get at is this a one-time thing, or do you see yourself maybe potentially in the future needing that area again too?
Yes, I would potentially say yes for the topsoil operation, you know?
Okay, because same as with screen, if this is something that you think you're going to be needing potentially to do in the future, then you may want to go the route of the variance. If it was a one-time thing, that might conceivably be different.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I could tell you, oh yeah, I'm going to be done in 3 days or I'm done in a week's time. The material is unforgiving with all the rain that we've had. You know, it does just, I don't know if anybody tried to screen dirt before, but it doesn't go mud doesn't go through a screen very well. You know?
So similar to what we told Mr. Green, the variance application would then, if granted, would allow you to not have to adhere to the 200 foot back from the road. It would instead be potentially whatever that distance is that this is. It maybe perhaps about 100. Yeah, maybe about 100 feet from the road.
Yeah.
But then that's yours forever, and you can use that forever.
Especially if you had a berm between the screener and the road that was taller than the screener. That would effectively block the screener from the road. I don't know if that's possible or not.
I don't know if it's possible right now. The screener's like 25 feet tall.
Oh! I thought it was more like 10.
Heck of a berm.
So I hate to send people to ZBA, but and you're number 3 tonight that I'm suggesting go to the ZBA, but I think that's the thing to do in this case. And then and if they grant the variance, once you have it, it's there forever. You don't have to worry about it.
This is on a per property basis anyways, correct?
Yes, if you were ever to want to sell the property, the variance goes with the land. So whoever was then to buy it would have that variance as well.
Okay, so I guess I gotta go in front of the ZBA then and file for it.
I think that's the best thing. I think that'll put the matter to bed once and for all.
So they're going to be looking for a hardship, obviously.
Yeah, and the hardship is just the way the material on the lot, excuse me, the way the material on the lot turned out to be.
Correct.
You didn't know what was there until you started digging, right?
More or less, yeah.
Because normally with a variance, they look to see if you have an unusual hardship, and what's unusual is usually if there's something unique about your lot. that, really makes it hard, impossible for you to meet that 200-foot setback requirement.
So, well, the issue obviously is that the 200-foot setback for the crushing and screening of recycled material is, and then having the cross contamination of putting an organic material with it, it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
You can't do them in the same place. It would be like, basically if you made process, to put under your driveway and there's mud there, you pave over it, your driveway is not going to have a good base, that's where I'm trying to explain to you,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa, I would be putting asphalt into my topsoil or concrete,
Right.
It's basis of, yes, I'm not going to move the 200-foot box for the crushing, but really for my screening of organic material, I can't make it work,
Okay. Give me a call. If tomorrow's convenient for you, great. If it's not, give me a call sometime over the next couple of days and we can talk about how to put the application together for them.
Okay, and so obviously it had to be done online anyways, the form.
Yeah, the link is online. I can email that to you as well.
Okay. If there's anything else, we'll let us know and we'll take care of it.
I think that's all by my.
Yeah, like Stacy said, just get a hold of her in the next couple of days, and you can go from there.
Okay, I will give her a call tomorrow.
Thanks for coming in.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Night.
Good night.
All right, next on our agenda under communications is reports of officer, staff, and committees, and we have a post-COVID-19 long-term recovery planning. And part of that is a proposed temporary regulation that got mailed out yesterday, and
yeah.
With some possible revisions today. So Stace, want to get the ball rolling?
Yes. On Monday, I believe it was, late in the day, I got information. Here, let me put it up. Well, yeah, no, I had it up. Excuse me 1 minute. Okay. I got a copy of this letter that I have in front of on the screen right now. There's a long presentation. There is a link to it by the agenda on the website. In the interest of time, I won't go through it, but it's basically the state getting ready to reopen for business. And one of the ways that's going to go is likely restaurants and bars, etc., having outdoor service. Particularly since we're heading into the summer, it's a good opportunity to take advantage of being outside, but let's still let the businesses get back in business. With that came this guidance statement from the Liquor Control Division that indicates that they are still going to require the patio extension of use and/or additional consumer bar application for any business that might have a liquor permit, but it's for inside. And now if they want to be serving outside as a part of post-COVID-19, they are going to need to have this form in place and approved by the state. That cannot be approved by the state unless the fire marshal and the zoning official sign off on it. Our regulations have some requirements with regard to alcohol and liquor service and where it may be, and etc. the goal obviously is not, we want to keep things safe and we want to make sure that it's being done properly, but at the same time, the goal is to try and work with business owners so that any approvals that they need from us can take place as quickly as possible.
And as it stands now, to go through the process the way it is, you know, they'd have to submit an application that we'd have to look at. Then we'd have to set a public hearing for the next month. And then, you know, we'd have to debate. And it's just, by the time we get to the point where we're going to make a decision to approve or deny, you know, it'll be next year. So the thinking is that, you know, we could come up with a streamlined procedure that Stacy could just administer and have us out of the loop. And it would be a temporary procedure. You know, we put specific end dates in there of October 15th. So I think, you know, I think we're covered. There were a couple of fine-tuning points.
There is an addition that we're going to want to make, yeah.
But, you know, again, we want to streamline the approach. We don't want to unnecessarily hurt the businesses that are hurting to begin with because of the forced closures because of the pandemic.
In a nutshell, I think I said this already, but you are permitting me to issue a temporary zoning approval for the period from May 20th, 2020 through October 15th, 2020. An outdoor, you know, like if they needed a site modification, a site plan modification in order to do this, or if they needed that addendum to the liquor permit, I can sign off on that under this proposed amendment. There lists some things that are required that they have to submit in order to get an approval. Obviously, the area has to be properly enclosed. With all of this, some places in town, particularly in the town center area, may have to use parking facility, what is now their parking facilities, in order to do this. So that is why, if they're located in an area customarily used for parking, appropriate barriers and adequate signage must be installed to prevent accidental incursion. Obviously, we wouldn't want someone thinking that they're driving into what is used to be the parking area and is not anymore. However, because they're taking up some of the parking spaces that they currently have with this, we are temporarily waiving the parking requirements in section 9.11, which specify how many parking spaces they're supposed to have for the duration of the approval. They would need to provide some sort of site plan. It doesn't have to be fancy schmancy, but it does have to give us an idea what's going on. The description of the controls they're going to use in order to make sure that the area is not at risk for vehicular traffic. We're not holding them to the parking requirements, but you know, just trying to get them to have at least a little bit of thought about, okay, where am I going to be routing our parking to, so that we can know that. A hold harmless agreement in favor of the town of Thomaston if any of their outdoor area happens to encroach on a public sidewalk, a public parking area, or other public space. And that's for obvious reasons. Keep the town protected. Similarly, proof of insurance coverage for the outdoor dining area. And for the part that pertains to the site plan for food and beverage, for food and beverage service, it's just simply stating that if you are going to be serving, because not everybody's going to have the liquor permit part of it. Some will, some won't. But if they are going to be looking for that, then they have to be in accordance with the temporary zoning approval for outdoor alcoholic beverage service. And this is the part that would enable me to sign off on the extension of their liquor permit. Similar wording to what was above. And again, this, as we've written it and as Attorney Byrne has reviewed it, this sunsets on October 15th. On October 16th, by October 16th, it's either they have to decide to apply for a permanent approval of their outdoor area, in which case they come before you guys and they go through the full review that they normally would have to go through. And they would have to meet all the parking requirements in Section 9. Or the temporary approval ends, which we chose October 15th purposefully. You know, after that, it's getting cold. Who's going to be sitting outside at that point? But after that, if if they're not going to convert it to permanent, then they have to restore the area to the way it was prior to their approval. After I sent this out to you all, I talked with Attorney Byrne, and Ralph also sent me an email. We were all thinking on the same page that we wanted to put in here a statement that the fact that someone was granted a temporary approval due to these never before imagined circumstances does not in any way convey a right to a legal nonconformity. So that's the amendment for your consideration. This is what we were talking about a possible special meeting for. Being super lightning quick, we can get legal noticing in tomorrow. And I forget what the other day was, but we can meet the existing, not the executive order, but the existing noticing requirements. By doing that, we can get it to the town clerk. We will send it to COG. Obviously, we aren't going to meet their 30-day. I highly doubt they're going to have an issue with what we're trying to do. Right. But I would talk with Joanna there, and I'm sure she would probably even be willing to give something to us in writing before then.
Hey, Stacy.
Hold on a second, Bill. So these an amendment to our regulations requires a public hearing. That's the purpose of the special meeting on the 18th, to have the public hearing for this, so we can get public comment before we take any further action. So that's all I had to say. That was the.
No, that's a good point.
So go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ralph. I was going to mention that. Thank you for covering that point. Have any of the downtown businesses or those restaurants that don't have outside patios asked about this at all?
They have not asked, but I was told by others in town hall that several are actively planning to put their outdoor service area in their parking area behind their restaurant.
And was there something with EDC also?
Well, EDC, I got that original notice that I showed you on Monday, and we had an EDC meeting that night. So of course I let them know. And they didn't put anything in writing, but it was clear they wanted me to convey to you that anything you could do to help would be enormously appreciated.
Talk about outside of the box thinking. This is really shifting gears.
Yeah, I think this may very well have been the quickest I ever wrote a possible text amendment. Certainly, if you guys approve it, the quickest I've ever seen one go through the process. But the hope.
I just have a question on the last part where the termination.
Yes.
Temporary approvals will no longer be valid. So does that also extinguish this? Does that imply that once that date, we hit that date, you can't apply, this is no longer valid and would be essentially taken out of the regs, considering if nothing changes? I guess if nothing changes.
I mean,
so we don't have to take action again later, I guess, is what I'm wondering. Is it clear that?
Well, what I would say is, and Steve, interject if I'm wrong, but what I would say is we have other text amendments coming up, and at that point in time, if they're after October, we can have that included in there to take the language out.
That's what I'd recommend, right? Once it serves its purpose, we get to that date. We can take it out, of course, unless there's another outbreak, right? We're talking.
Oh, don't even say that.
But yeah, I would do that to just remove it so there's no confusion. This is a
Just
one-time.
take a separate action to remove it. Don't like have it automatically.
Yeah, we'd have to. But like I said, we have other things that we're working on, so I'm sure we could roll it in with one of those.
Question for a bar that does not serve food. Trying to think if there are any in town. Would they be allowed to move their business outside?
I guess partially we're operating blind here because we don't know exactly how the governor down on this, what the date's going to be, what the partial opening's going to look like. So some of that's going to play into this. And I have to tell you that there's been a lot of discussion about this over the past couple of days on the planners listserv. Different places are doing it a little differently. Some people were just doing an executive order by the first selectman of their town. Some were going the text amendment route and trying to figure out how to do it. There is a group of the CT Bar Association and the CT Planner Association, and they're apparently advising Governor Lamont on this issue. So there may very well be an executive order that comes along that supersedes what you're looking at right now. The problem with that, because I asked Steve, I if that's coming for that, and you indicated you didn't think that was going to be anytime soon. Is that a fair statement?
It's a very fair statement. You know, you mentioned the number of people advising, and as we know, the more cooks in the kitchen, the longer it takes to make the meal. So I do not anticipate really that executive order. It's been our governor's practice. He seems to issue something like the Friday before. So maybe we'll get something. You may have something before that special meeting is my thought, that we would get an executive order out maybe on, Friday the 15th or something like that. That would become effective, on the 20th. That's just my guess. It seems to be how he does many of his orders. So,
that brings up a good point though. All through this document, it lists the start date as May 20th. Right. I think that also needs to be qualified May 20th if permitted by state.
It's a good point.
Regs.
I think we're all kind of expecting the May 20th date, since that was when the previous orders were kind of up until. So I think that kind of worked in there. And with the 18th date, just so you know why we pulled that date out of it. With the 18th, if you were to vote to approve a text amendment, we can legally notice it the next, on the website the next day, and then we would be good to be effective for the 20th. That's how that all kind of fell into place.
So it's the earliest. Yeah, it's the earliest we can get things done.
Right. Yeah. Right. Obviously, that's a good point. That depends on if that's in fact when he decides that businesses can partially open.
So I think those two things need to be added to this. The part about not being entitled to a legal nonconformity, and the part about May 20th if permitted by state regulation. Other than that, if nobody else has any comments, I'd like to set the public hearing for this text amendment for our special meeting on May 18th.
My other question was, if there June 1st comes a change, I'm assuming this is written the way it is due to, anticipating the, guidelines with state capacities. So if it's say June 1st, June 10th, that changes, can we put something there to, ensure that people are complying with that, so you're not monitoring all these numbers all summer of, who has what outside, if there were to become enforcement issues, you're kind of getting people back to normal, back to what, maybe the state's allowing. I don't know how you would word that, but it's just something to think about, I guess. I don't know if, you know what I mean?
You kind of cut out a little bit, so I'm not
Oh,
entirely
I
sure.
did.
But
I guess if there's changes at the state level of being more, you know,
Oh,
back
okay.
to normal,
Okay.
something
I see what you're
gradual in
saying.
line with that just says, so yeah, so you're not having to count, you know,
I guess like
you
something.
know what I mean? I don't know.
I think I do like something
general.
effective unless superseded by a subsequent
It's just,
executive
yeah.
order
There you
by.
go.
Okay.
Like at a future time, yeah, before
Uh-huh.
October, you know, after when some
Okay,
of those
good point.
changes that they have to graduate back to what the usual, you know, that's all.
Okay.
So you're not monitoring everyone, like how many people do you have now outside, or how many, you know, you don't want to be
Okay.
policing all.
No,
That's
I
all.
don't.
Something I think it could be broad, but yet, you know,
Okay. No, I think that's a good point.
effective. Yeah, that's all. That's my only comment.
Anybody else? So why doesn't somebody make a motion to set the public hearing for this text amendment to our May 18th special meeting?
Tom Mueller, so moved.
Thanks. Is there a second?
Elizabeth Jameson, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Bill Guerrero, how do you vote?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz?
Joe Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jameson?
Elizabeth Jameson, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously. Stace, what's number 2? NRG Thomaston Tutorial Routing Study Final Document. Is that anything pressing? I'm running out of steam.
Me too.
I sent it around. It's a big document, but basically it's the final routing study issued by the COG for the area of the proposed greenway between Thomaston and Torrington.
So what was the final route through Thomaston that they proposed?
I can bring up the pictures if you like. It's already what we've discussed several
Okay.
times already.
Unless anybody else wants to see it, I don't need to see it.
I'm good.
It's just represents the official position, and they're going to be having a meeting, I believe, eventually, and they just wanted us to discuss it with, you know, briefly discuss it with both the Board of Selectmen and with you guys.
Okay.
So if you could, the link is on where the agenda and everything is. So if you could take a look at that, that would be great.
And then next is executive session.
If you want to have one,
I think I
can make it quick.
I think we should have a quick one just to bring everybody up to speed. Yeah, because there has been some changes.
Okay.
Hey,
Hang
Tom
on
Mueller,
one second. Okay,
make
go
a
ahead.
motion. Somebody else take? I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal issues at 9:37.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Joe Hart, second.
Elizabeth Jameson, second.
Liz, Joe beat you. Any discussion?
I'm
Bill,
sorry. Tom, will you invite in myself and Pat Santa Maria?
I'm gonna back out.
Okay.
So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah,
Good night.
I'll amend the motion to invite in Stacy, and I think we need to invite in Stephen
Attorney
Byrne.
Byrne.
too. Attorney
Yes,
Byrne.
yes. And Joe Hartz, do you amend your second?
Yes, Joe Hart's amends his second to that motion.
Thank you. Bill Guerrero, how do you vote?
Bill Guerrero, aye.
Tom Mueller?
Tom Mueller, aye.
Joe Hartz?
Joe Hart's aye.
Elizabeth Jameson?
Elizabeth Jameson, aye.
And Ralph Salone also votes aye, so the motion carries unanimously. Let's just give Stacy a moment to get everything squared away that she needs to get squared away.
Please, thank you. Okay.